I had a nickel for every time someone asked me when I was doing this plot summary, I would have enough money to go to the store, buy the new Fearless hardcover, get an oat milk shaken espresso from the cafe, and also maybe a cinnamon roll. But you know what? I've always said better late than never, and I work best under pressure. So without further ado, this is the Reckless plot summary. I'm so excited to finally be doing this with you guys. I know it's a long time coming. We have a lot of ground to cover, but Fearless is finally here. So before we read it, let's get caught up on what happened in book 2. Our cast of characters for book 2, I really just trimmed down because, well, in book 1, half of them died anyway. So we have our little whiteboard, and our stars of the show are Peyton Gray, Kai, and Kit Azir. Our little nicknames for them are King Killer, because, you know, the Enforcer, which I think is still up for debate at this point on whether or not he is. Well, we'll get into that later in the book. And Prince Kit is now the King of Ilia, so we can either call him Your Highness, Royal Majesty, Kitty Cat. There's a lot of nicknames we can have for Kit, I think, in this book, but let me know what you think in the comments, what you would like that to be. But anyway, let's get into it. We start the ground running with Kai meeting up with Gale, the chef of the palace. She's giving him a sticky bun, and we find him walking to the grounds, that big tree that is kind of seen in a lot of book 1, and he ends up kind of blowing out a candle and wishing someone named A happy birthday. A little vague, but again, that all kind of gets revealed later on in the book. Now, because of what happened at the very end of Powerless, Peyton is now on the run. She is a fugitive for the kingdom of Ilia because she killed the last king. And where does she run? She runs to her childhood home, which honestly probably wasn't the best idea because it was also the home or hiding place for the resistance, which she was a part of in book 1. So anyway, she makes a run there. She's looking through things, seeing if she can find anything. And underneath the floorboards, she finds an old journal that belonged to her dad. She hears people coming, and it ends up being Kai with some of his guards because they are looking for her. So what does she do? She shimmies up yet another chimney in order to hide. And on page 11, Kai says this: "Tell me, darling, do you think of me often?" His voice is a murmur as if his lips were pressed against my ear. I shiver, knowing exactly what that feels like. Do I haunt your dreams, plague your thoughts like you do mine? He gets discouraged, he walks away, and as he does, she hears him say, "It's a good thing you're not here because I still haven't found my courage." And then he sets the house on fire. She ends up making a run for it because obviously we don't want to be cooked alive in a chimney, so she makes a run for it, running on the rooftops. He finds her, throws a knife, manages to stab her in the thigh, but she still is able to escape. She kills one of his guards along the way. And we see Kai kind of stop. He feels bad for the guard, not really, but he realizes that Peyton probably does feel really bad for what she's having to do because she's on the run. And so he makes the effort to go ahead and bury this guard because he knew Peyton would want to. So it's already pretty clear a couple of pages in this book that he is still very much not over Peyton. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you all on why Peyton hates Kai in the first place. Okay, guys? In the battle between Peyton and the King of Ilia in book 1, we find out that Kai is the one who killed Peyton's father. It was his first kill, and he was the one that put the knife to her dad's chest. She finds all this out at the very end and ends up killing the king because of that and a bunch of other stuff. So homegirl, she's conflicted, for lack of a better word. Okay, she's really torn between her feelings of hate and love, potentially, which I honestly get more than why Kai is so upset with her, because in all of book 1, no one likes the king, and now that he's dead, he's so angry with her. But I don't know, I feel like it's misdirected anger, to be honest. But anyway, I digress. She's now on the run and she's injured, and she is not safe in Ilia at all. She needs to leave, make a run for it. So she decides to run for the Scorches, which is like that really dangerous desert outside of the kingdom of Ilia, to head to one of the outer cities called Dor. There aren't any elites there. It's technically like a sanctuary for ordinaries, so she decides to make a run for it, and hopefully she doesn't die in the process in the desert. Now, back at the palace, Kai and Kitty Cat are having like this weird staring contest on who's looking worse for where. Okay, Kai is all bloody from running around trying to catch Peyton, and Kit literally looks like a zombie because he has not slept, he hasn't eaten, he hasn't changed, he hasn't showered, he has not left his study in days. We also find out that Kay's mom, aka the queen, or she was the queen, she's super sick. She is dying of like a broken heart. So we don't know if she's gonna make it or not. And Kit still hasn't gone to see her. It's a whole thing. And Kit also makes a mention of Kai because he's the enforcer and he has to go search for Peyton. He's like, I don't really trust you because you obviously didn't obey the last king's orders when he told you to kill people and you didn't kill them. And Kai is really good at reading people. So when Kit says, whatever I felt for her died the day she killed him, he knows it's a lie. And then Kai responds, I know the feeling. And he also knows that he himself is lying. And it says, we eye each other, both content to drown in our shared delusions, but we say nothing else, not bothering to confront the fact that we're lying to both ourselves and each other. Meanwhile, in the desert, Peyton is pretty much just hallucinating. She's in pain. But it's all in the name of vengeance for Adina. She's talking about swearing to kill Blair one day, and she's just trying to make it so that she can get vengeance on what was done to her best friend. Meanwhile, Kai is now also in the desert, and he's also like hallucinating. He's also has so much time to think now, so he's going back and forth. He doesn't understand why he's not really feeling bad about Peyton killing his dad. Like, does he or does he not care that his father is dead? The age-old question, I guess. But eventually, after a few chapters, Peyton does pass out in the desert, and fortunately for her, she makes it right to the outskirts of Dor, and one of the guardsmen that's like at a post sees her, tries to save her, but she freaks out. She wakes up, she attacks the guy, breaks his wrist. He realizes who she is because there is a bounty on her head in like every surrounding kingdom. For $20,000 or silvers, there's a reward for her, dead or alive. Not a really good look for Peyton because she was hoping to be at peace in Dor, but here we are, and she finds herself yet again having to kill somebody even though she really doesn't want to do it, and she's very, very upset about it. Going back to Kai, we're just zipping through this book. I tell you, this is gonna be a quick one, guys, because it really is just a cat and mouse chase, this whole book. But anyway, Kai ends up catching up pretty quick. He finds the dead guard, realizes what probably happened, knows he's getting close. And once we get into the city, we find out really, really quickly that people do not like elites. Ow. He is like not wanted in their city. People don't like him. They don't want to serve him food because to them, elites are abominations, not the other way around like it is in Ilia. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Different change of pace here. Even though they're intimidated because they know he's the enforcer, they really don't like him. So there's not really much respect there. Now, Peyton, because of her silver hair, she really sticks out like a sore thumb. So she's hungry, she needs to hide, she needs to blend in with the crowd. But fortunately for her, she finds an underground fighting ring, which is like the most random thing ever. Like, who knows of an underground fighting ring? Let's be real. But anyway, she decides, if I can win these fights, I can get money, I can hide in plain sight, and I can eat some food. And that's all we need right now. So she adopts a name called Shadow, and she starts getting in fights and winning. She does a really good job. She beats some guy named Slick. And just before she gets too cocky, she hears a voice that sounds all too familiar that says, so is Shadow up for another round? But before we get to that, how does Kai end up finding her? Because while he's exploring the city of Dor, he runs into a little girl that, if you remember from Powerless, he was supposed to kill because she's an ordinary, and instead of killing her, he banishes the whole family to the Scorches desert, and they end up surviving because the little girl's there. So she's a little thief herself, but he does find out through her that there is a new fighter in town who's doing really, really good, and he just follows that trail, and that's how he finds Peyton. But we gotta hold our horses before we get into that whole debacle, because we finally get Kit's first chapter in the book. Oh my goodness. And I feel like if we were able to smell through the book, we would be able to smell Kit right now, because it's been now 2 weeks since Kitty Cat has become the king of Ilia, and the descriptions that we get of him aren't great. He's disheveled, his clothes are wrinkly, he's not eating, he's throwing out food out the window. He hasn't showered because he hasn't left to study, so I don't know, I'm just putting two and two together. But in this chapter, we do get 2 bits of interesting thoughts that I think for me are cause for concern. He says, Kai was the king father wanted. It was clear as the obvious distaste they shared for one another. Kai is every bit the brutal, the bold, the foreboding, every bit the king's son. And I think that was exactly the problem between the 2 of them. Father hated that he wasn't the heir. He hated that the king he wanted was thwarted by the son he had first. I wasn't Kai and it killed him. Then he says, and his mind is going back and forth in like a million thoughts, but another one of his thoughts is that he can't stop thinking about her. Obviously we know who her is, but he's super troubled. He is not okay. And the end of the chapter says, I'm tired of writing from the villain's perspective. So I don't really know what that means. Is he aware that he's like a villain for some reason? But why, if he hasn't actually done anything right now? He just became king, not of his own accord. So why is he thinking he's the villain? Now back at the ring, Peyton and Kai, they run into each other. She tries to get away, he catches up, and she tries to put up a little deal with him because he wants to fight her. And so she's like, okay, fine. If you win, I will come quietly with you back to Ilia, but if I win, you leave me the heck alone. They have this banter, they go back and forth, and once again, like Lauren Roberts does best, we get a ton of poetic inner monologues from Kai that we just love. So obviously I'm gonna read them to you. I used to welcome the idea of drowning in those blue eyes of hers, but now seeing the disdain she stares me down with, I realize that drowning alone wasn't what I craved, but sinking together. I mean, come on. But she's not having it. She's so upset. So she whispers to him, I hate you. And he doesn't understand why. And so he says, prove it. Hate me enough to make me want you. Ruin me. And they kiss. This is the first official kiss we get from Peyton and Kai. My jaw dropped reading it. We should have gotten this in book 1. That was stolen from us. But we finally get it 94 pages later. And it's a good one. It's a doozy. It says, this kiss is deep and anything but tender. It is betrayal, it's bitterness, and nothing has ever tasted so sweet. But of course, nothing good lasts forever in this book. So yeah, they're not happy with each other still. They break away, they realize it was a mistake, and they get back into the ring because they gotta fight this out. There's no way we're getting past this. So they pretend that never happened. They get into the fight. They start beating the crap out of each other. And during the fight, Peyton is able to unmask Kai because he was masked in order for people not to recognize him, because again, they don't like elites, they don't like the enforcer, so he's been hiding too. So she unmasks him and he gets pissed, so then he unmasks her, and it is utter chaos because again, she's worth a lot of money right now, so they make a run for it. And she agrees to go willingly with him because what other choice does she have? While they're on the run together, walking away, whatever, she finally confronts him about what he did to her dad, and he's kind of like taken aback. He does not realize that this was what she was upset about because he didn't realize it himself. He was so young, it was such a long time ago, he kind of blacked it out, didn't put 2 and 2 together. And because he's so in shock about it, she manages to slip away, but obviously that doesn't last long because Kai catches Pei once again, and it's late, they're tired, they need a rest. And honestly, what's a good YA romantasy story without a single bed trope at an inn? Honestly, we eat it up. We live for this stuff. Peyton, honestly, at this point, she doesn't give a crap. They both got some severe PTSD right now. They're tired, they're hungry, and they just need some good old like therapy, honestly. But because they don't have that, we're just gonna settle with a nice cozy bed at the inn. While we're at the inn, nothing crazy happens, but we are revealed by Kai that he did not realize Peyton's dad was the target. He didn't know who this person was. He was not given any information for his targets. For the first few years of like doing his enforcer stuff, he was threatened by his dad that if he didn't kill his target, that the king would kill him. So he was just doing his job. He was a kid, he didn't know any better. Which she kind of figured because again, she knows Kai. She knows he's not really a monster, but she had to assume, right? Like, it's still very upsetting news that she found out, so can we really blame her? And she ends up telling Kai, it's honestly a shock that no one is thanking me for what I did, which Honestly, same. But alas, nothing ends up happening. He ends up sleeping on the floor. She takes the bed, and they're kind of just like grumpy, falling asleep unhappily in this situation. But while they're doing that, let's go ahead and check in on Kai. You'll see I still have my golden retriever picture here. I couldn't figure out what dog to replace him with, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, like I said earlier, he's not doing great. He's tossing food out his window. Andy, the cousin, she comes in to like check on Kit, say like, hey, you haven't seen me, you haven't talked to Jax, your other brother, and we're all really missing you. Are you okay? And he just dismisses her. He's acting like super kingly and official, and it's super unsettling, so he just kicks her out. Back indoor the next day, Peyton and Kai, they wake up and they're gonna make their way again through the scorches to get out of the city and into Ilya again. And I wanted to read this from you because we just love a possessive prince, you know? Because the guards don't like Peyton, okay? They don't like her, they're calling her names, whatever. And he tells them, you know, I haven't even bothered to learn your name, soldier. That's how little I value your life. So imagine what I would be more than happy to do to you if you ever lay another finger on her. Love it. We also find out in this chapter that Peyton doesn't like horses, and that becomes a whole thing. She ends up just like walking behind them or beside them while they're on horseback, but that doesn't last a long time because another trope that we love is sharing a horse. Yes. So they set up camp, and Peyton is over here like, why do you hate us so much? Why do you hate ordinary so much? And Kai is like, well, don't you know the history? Don't you know why it's so important that we have to do this, la la la. So we learn about the conspiracy between the elites and the ordinaries, and the history about the sickness that happened in Ilya and how elites came to be, and that when ordinaries were found, it became super dangerous because the theory is that if too many ordinaries have kids with elites, eventually the elites will just die off and there won't be any more, which is super dangerous. They have like a sickness, essentially, like they're contaminated. So they're dangerous to the kingdom because Ilya was always seen as a weak nation, and now that they have elites, they're very powerful. So if they're scared that if elites are gone, they'll be a weak country again, essentially. And the following day, they wake up to all of Kai's guards getting killed because we have our old resistance members that survived in book 1. We got Lenny and some of their friends. They end up rescuing Peyton. They take Kai as prisoner and they go back to Dor because they plan on using Kai as leverage, essentially, for Peyton's freedom. And when we get back to Dor, we see at this hiding place that they're not just housing ordinaries, they're housing mixes, aka partials. So essentially they are people, they're offspring of ordinaries and elites. They got together, had babies, and they have powers, but it's like a flickering of what an elite should be. Kai is like super taken aback. He's so confused. He can't believe this exists. He tries to channel their powers and is unsuccessful because it's super weak. But again, he's in shock because his dad declared that to be impossible. Like, you could not have a kid with powers if you were with an ordinary. So he's a little flabbergasted. And unfortunately for them, or I guess unfortunately for Peyton and her friends, these two get kidnapped by Raphael. And Raphael is the owner of the underground fighting ring that Peyton was a part of. See, remember when I said that people want her like really badly? I really wasn't joking about that. And this guy Raphael, he's like, sorry girl, but you're worth more to me if I just give you up than having you participate in like fighting rings, or any money that I would make in the fighting rings, you'll bring me a lot more. So he ties them up, puts them in a cell in like a stinky sewer, like it's a stinky prison cell thing that's right above a sewer. So it smells, it's dark, it's dingy, it's super small. And Peyton, she's got claustrophobia. She's freaking out. And they're tied together like back to back. So yeah, really stinky situation we got over here. But before I get into what happens down there, we're gonna check in on Kit again. Newsflash, things aren't getting better, but something really interesting happens in this chapter with Kit. Someone enters his study, and his name, He's not a servant, he's not an advisor, but he goes by Callum. And if you remember in Powerless, Callum was the name of the head of the resistance. So it leaves the question, is this the same Callum? And if so, is he hiding in plain sight? Does Kit have any idea who this guy is? We don't really know. It's pretty vague. I'm not really understanding that whole situation. But yeah, it could be foreshadowing for Fearless. I don't know. But it gets even crazier because he leaves Kit's room and leaves a box on Kit's desk. But it's not just any box. It's a small box and it's a velvet. And he goes, I blink at what I know is trapped inside the velvet case. My heart stutters beneath my ribs, my mouth falling as it attempts to form his name in protests. And Callum says, it's the best way. I know that it's not exactly the most appealing idea. And Kit is like, do you even know what you're asking me to do? So something's happening, a plot is forming, we don't know what it is, but again, if this is the same Callum, something's going on. Is this the same Callum and is he a double agent, or does Kit know more than we think he knows? Back at the cell, they eventually escape. They make a run for it through a sewer. They jump in, they're running, but now the water is rising. Like, things aren't looking good. It's disgusting, honestly, to think about. But they team up in order to escape, and again, things aren't looking good. They're starting to get not good thoughts about what may be happening to them. So what do? As they realize that they're probably gonna die right now, Kai says, your name seems like a good word to die with on my lips, because he calls her Peyton, which he never does, okay? And he says, I don't regret it. I don't regret you or what was between us, and I don't regret kissing you on that roof, but I know I'll regret what I have to do for you. I know I'll regret what I have to do to you for the rest of my life. And she says, I regret not doing it right, and I regret not being what I'm supposed to be. And he tells her, I'm sorry you have to be anything at all. So sad. And we end the chapter with him telling her to pretend, and they kiss. Because again, they think they're about to die right now. Now, fortunately for them, even though they think they're about to die, at the very last second, because that's how these things go, they find a sewer grate right above them as the water's rising, and they like can't even breathe anymore. So they're able to kind of shove it out of the way, but one of them passes out to save, so then Kai saves Peyton, and then he passes out, so then she jumps back in. They end up saving each other, okay? It's a cute little moment, whatever, even though they probably smell really, really bad. And then, of course, Kai ruins this moment by chaining them together at the ankles, and it really gives the impression that everything that he said that was mushy gushy in the sewer was a lie, because he was planning all along to chain them together regardless. So yeah, she's feeling super betrayed with the moment that they had and thinking it was all a farce, and he just has to go along with it, because what choice does he have, really? But once again, we find ourselves in another inn, because as you can imagine, they're disgusting and they need a bath. So they end up sneaking into a room, and they take turns. Like, one person is out with like their leg out the door so that the other person can be in a bath, and they just do that. They swap places. But the fun part about this is that because they're chained together, do you think one person's gonna be taken to the floor? Absolutely not. And we love that. Or I should say we love that for Kai, because Peyton's still not happy with him. And so Kai tells Peyton, just pretend not to hate each other in these moments. Remember, all this means is that we're useful to one another. And so she goes, fine, pretend. They wake up all tangled up, and it's cute, except Peyton realizes again from the day before what happened, and she's not having it. So they get ready to leave, and the innkeeper finds them, so they have to make a run for it. And in order to like hide themselves, I guess, in a back alley, they pretend they're a couple, and so he kind of like gets all close to her or whatever, and she's not having it. But again, we have that whole pretend game going on. So he tells her, just pretend, and he's like kissing her neck and all this stuff, and she's trying really hard to hate him. So yeah, we're gonna leave them to that, because we gotta go back and talk about Kit again and this little black box. But in this chapter, we see Kit's thoughts just run wild. He goes from thinking how absurd it is to grieve a man who loved power more than his sons, how absurd to grieve a man who offered me no praise, how absurd to grieve a man who could never be pleased, how unfair to grieve such a man. So obviously he also has conflicting feelings towards his dad. And then he's also wondering why Kai's not back yet. So his thoughts are running rampant with maybe they ran away together. Maybe he lied to me. Maybe they're going to be happy and run off into the sunset. She should be back by now. He should be back by now. And it's just going on and on and on with those thoughts. Yeah. Like I said earlier, this book is mostly a cat and mouse chase, but it's also running away from people in Door. So that's what's happening right now. They're running through Door, trying to escape. The plan currently is to leave Door, and instead of running through the Scorches again, they want to cut through a place called the Sanctuary of Souls, which is technically a shortcut, but it's like extremely dangerous, I guess. So they're gonna try and do that, but before they do, they get flagged down once again by people that want her for money. And so yet again, they have to pretend to be a couple in order to hide, which honestly, is that really necessary? Is that the best way to hide? Is that the only way to hide? I don't know, but they're definitely using it to their advantage. And where do they decide to run into to play this little pretend game again? Some sort of like gambling den. He is gonna try and win them money. So they are now playing cards, and she decides to like sit on his lap because again, they're chained together by the ankle. So she doesn't really have much options in terms of comfortability. So she just decides to mess with him, and I find this scene absolutely hilarious. I was so giddy reading this. I could just picture it. She's like, I guess, sitting on his lap or straddling him or whatever, and he's trying to like focus, play cards, win money, whatever. And also she's trying to like hide her face from people that are running in and out of this place looking for her. Eventually everything is fine and they're on their way again, and we get this little bit about Kai killing her dad. He tells Peyton that he was sleeping and I wasn't going to do it. I was going to slip out of the door and deal with the consequences. But then he woke up, he looked me right in the eyes, and that's when I was suddenly driving the sword through his chest. I stumbled from the room and threw up before I even made it back to my horse. I didn't want to do it, Gray. I wasn't going to do it. And she's, taken aback. She doesn't really know what to say. And he's like, not what you wanted to hear, was it? It makes it harder for you to hate me. And she's like, harder maybe, but not impossible. In this next chapter, we kind of get like this jealousy thing going on. They're talking about, because Peyton's trying to like braid her hair and Kai knows how to do it. And she's like, oh, did you do it with your other lovers? And he's like, no, I've only ever done it with one other person. And so she's assuming it's like another woman, but he's like, no, my sister. And this is when we learn about Ava. Ava was the daughter of the king and queen, so full-blooded sibling to Kai. However, she was born sick, like incredibly sick, and she didn't like have a long time to live. So the king hid her away. No one knows that she's ever existed. She's also not buried with the royal family. She's buried under that tree that we see in the prologue of this book, and also throughout Powerless. We also find out that she was a crawler, and because she was like a lesser elite as well, it just wasn't a good look for the kingdom. So she was just hidden away. No one really wanted her, except for, well, the king didn't want her, I should say. But yeah, Peyton finds out about Ava. Kai's being super vulnerable. And then he tells Peyton that he doesn't understand why she's not a mix. If her dad was a healer, her mom must have been an ordinary, but wouldn't that have made her a mix and not have any powers at all? So Peyton's just kind of upset about that and the implication that could be there, but that's kind of where they leave that conversation off for the time being. But anyway, they made camp for the night. I don't know if I mentioned, but they did steal a horse from some stable hand person, so that's how they're traveling through the Sanctuary of Scorches. Anyway, they made camp for the night, and Peyton has like a million questions. So you know what that means. Kai tells her, I will answer your questions for a dance. You get to ask me a question if you dance with me. So here we go again with like a million cute moments in this chapter. It's honestly it's disgusting how cute they are. But I'm also not really that disgusted about it. She starts laughing and he's like staring her down. and she tries to like stop, and he's like, don't do it. And she's like, I won't give you the satisfaction of making me laugh. And he's like, but then you'd be depriving me of the sound. And he's like staring her down. And it says, his tone is familiar, feeling like dancing in a dark room and thumb wars under willow trees. The way the words rolled off his tongue felt like a light flick to the tip of my nose, like calloused fingers braiding silver hair. It felt like Kai, like the man behind the mask who looks at me like I was extraordinary. So cute. And then they start dancing, and he's telling her more about Ava and just like little things that he would do with her and how weak she was, and that he would kiss her thumbs or her fingertips and tell her that he would give her some of his powers so that to make her stronger. And he's only ever done that with Ava, but at the party in Powerless, during one of the balls and they dance, he kisses her fingers, he kisses her thumbs. And Kai tells Peyton, like, I've only ever done that with her. And that's why he got super upset and started drinking and stuff that night. Yeah, because it was just a sweet moment. And then they wake up the next day. They lay together, they go to sleep, they wake up, traveling again. Peyton notices that he's bleeding, and he's like, oh yeah, I got stabbed when we ran away with horse, but I'm fine. So obviously he's not fine, and so she stops and bandages him up and whatever. They have their little banter as they always do. But I want to get back to Kit really fast, because Kit finally leaves his study. And what does he do? He goes looking for food. He finds Gail, and she's like, I've been waiting for you. I miss you, all this stuff. She has, you know, food for him, and he sees a candle, and she's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to put this away. I'm so sorry. And that's when he realizes like he missed Ava's birthday, and he also was super, super close to her. So we get that bit. He feels super guilty. He shuts himself out even more. Gail is like super worried, and he just makes a run for it. He's just acting really jittery and not himself. So it's not really seeming like he's gonna be an evil king, but it just seems that he's not well. And when people aren't in the best headspace, they make not great decisions. So now I want to get to one of the best chapters in the book, okay? Chapter 38. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite scene in this book? Because for me, this is definitely a top contender. As they're traveling, they stop and they find somehow like this secluded grove that's been just like untouched in this area. I can't imagine what the landscape would look like, but it seems like this hidden oasis no one knows about. And there's like a little pond lake thing there as well. So they sit by it. It says, he placed his palm on the grass beside mine. I feel his fingers inching closer before they graze the tips of mine. I don't dare look in his direction. My gaze is fixed on the glittering water as I occupy myself by counting each ripple. On ripple 3, he slides his pinky beneath mine. By 7, most of our fingers are woven together, tangled in the grass. And at this point, she just gets like this random surge of courage, whatever, and just says, screw it. And she gets in the water, and obviously they're chained together. Okay, don't forget that, they're chained together. So he goes into, and she can't swim. How convenient is that, right? So she like wraps her legs around him, and they're kind of just like floating together in the water, having the cutest moment literally ever. And she's still really hesitant, even though this is, you know, something she also wants. And he says, just pretend we deserve to pretend. And she asks, this is just pretend? And he says, this is just us. No titles, no obligations, no history. And I'm not gonna get into details here, but have a really sweet moment and really hardcore makeout sesh. So yeah, honestly, they're just making up for lost times from all the time that they didn't kiss in book 1. We just get a ton of it in book 2, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But now I want to get to the journal entries, because this next chapter, after they have that sweet moment, they're resting, they're trying to make a fire because it started raining on them really badly in the water, and they're just soaked to the bone. They're cold, they need to warm up. So they start ripping pages from Peyton's dad's journal, and she finds journal entries, not just like stuff about healing or whatever, but stuff about her and the resistance and stuff. So let's dive in there. It says, he is paying them off. He being the king of Ilya. What an expensive lie, because no one will question what the healers say they detect. For decades, the king has been busying the support of the only people who know this disease to be a lie. So first revelation is King of Ilya, surprise, surprise, has been telling everybody or been telling all the healers to tell the kingdom that ordinaries are diseased. Strike one. Which again, we kind of already knew, but I feel like this was important revelation for Kai specifically. And then the next revelation gets even juicier because we start learning about Peyton and her dad's wife, so her mom. Okay, they get married, they're in love, whatever, she's pregnant, and she suddenly dies, and it says that he buried her along with her baby, which doesn't make sense. But unbeknownst to him, he gets a nice little surprise at his door one day. It says, there she was, a baby girl. Someone left her on my doorstep. She can't be more than a few weeks old, with a head full of silver hair and deep blue eyes. And that is revelation number 2. That Peyton's dad isn't really her dad. Her parents aren't really her parents. They are her adopted parents. We do not know who her parents are, but it does answer the question of why was Peyton an ordinary when her father was a healer. It never added up, and now we kind of know why. Peyton's having like an early midlife crisis because she's freaking out. She's like, I don't know who I am. I'm nothing, blah, blah, blah. And Kai tells her, you cannot be nothing when you are everything to someone else. And I love that quote so much. That should be on a bumper sticker. I also want to point out that this chapter does also mention Callum again. And I double checked, guys. It's spelled the same way. So one can only use context clues to deduce that this is the same Callum that Kate is talking to. This is the head of the resistance. I don't know. I could be wrong here. Nothing is for sure, but I have a hunch. And our boy Kai is officially in just deep doo-doo here. You thought he was in deep doo-doo in the sewer? Nay. It's getting bad now. Because the truth is now officially on paper. He has it. It's proof. And unless he's gonna call Peyton's dad a liar, then everything his dad has told him about the ordinaries and stuff is a lie. Which, why would you not think that everything your dad ever said has been a lie? Honestly. The problem with Kai, honestly, where he falls short in this whole thing is that he is so big on his duty to his kingdom and to his king. And like, honestly, what is this? Mulan going to war? Like, it's not that serious, honestly. But he doesn't get a chance to dwell on that too long because once again, bandits come, people are chasing them, and they have to fight him off. He gets like an arrow through the shoulder, and so Peyton has to now take down all these bandits kind of like by herself. It's a whole thing. She's very upset about it because she's just tired of all the killing. She's just tired of fighting. She is just tired. Poor girl, honestly. She's having a rough time with it. After all of them leave, she's trying to like heal Kai, wrap him up, whatever, and her hair gets like covered in blood, and she's just getting crazy flashbacks to Adina, what happened to her and stuff, and it's just too much for her. So she freaks out and tells Kai to cut her hair. And that's exactly what happens. He cuts her hair. We don't know how long it really was to begin with. I'm assuming it was long because now it's shoulder length. But yeah, they have like a really sweet moment. She's able to like kind of really cry it out, and he just kind of holds her, and they just say nothing, and she just cries. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Kit finally decides to go see the queen. He never had really a good relationship with her, but he wants to talk to her and apologize for like not going to see her earlier. Doesn't seem like she has a lot of time left. I don't know. So when he talks to the queen, she mentions that the king had left him a bunch of letters in the event of his death, and that they are in his desk. So yeah, we don't know what that's all about, but they do have like a kind of a sweet moment, I guess. I don't know. But we're not gonna worry about that for too much because we finally get to my chapter in the book. They're almost back to the kingdom of Ilya. I'm assuming you can see the palace gates or whatever just yonder, but before they get there, there's like this huge field of poppies that Kai wants to show Peyton, and it's like absolutely beautiful. You just have, as far as the eye can see, like a huge lush field of blooming poppies, and I love that. And I have like so many good quotes in these chapters in the poppy fields. I love how he stares at her. It says on page 341, "It's hard to believe that something so beautiful would willingly stare at the likes of me. I feel undeserving of her gaze, of the way her eyes roam over my face. I shake my head, still staring down at her. Don't look at me like that." And she says, "Like what?" And he responds, "Like I'm worthy of being seen." And this is why Kai is my favorite book boyfriend. Like, this boy doesn't think he's deserving of love, and he is. And it's just so pure and cute. They're just having a bunch of cute moments here. But while that's happening, Peyton lets her guard down, and her shoulder, like, it's like off the shoulder shirt with a tank top underneath, but it kind of falls too much, and Kai notices like a scar right here. And we haven't really talked about that too much in here yet, but you remember what the King of Ilya did to Peyton? Well, she's never told anyone, no one knows about it, and he's freaking out. It says, his eyes drift down the length of my neck, following the curve of my exposed shoulder. The oversized shirt and tank top strap now hang loosely. His eyes narrow, looking like chips of ice as a storm begins to brew within them. And he's like, let me see what my dad did to you. So they have like this whole like little fighting thing. She starts hitting him and stuff because she really doesn't want to show. And she tells him, after he dragged the blade down my neck, he told me he'd leave his mark on my heart so I never forget who it was that broke it. And she is just super upset about it. She hates what she feels like she's been ruined by the king and just completely disfigured. She's mortified, just all the bad feelings. And he's trying to console her, and she's like, just say my name, please. And because she's been so upset for most of this book, she really didn't want him like calling her Peyton, but now she's taking that back and says, say my name. So it's kind of a big deal. And she's like, and she thinks to herself, I crave the sound of my name on his tongue. I want him to shout it from a rooftop, whisper it in my ear, trace it on my skin. I want my name to form a familiar shape in his mouth, tasting of my lips. I want him to own my name and still beg when he says it. Or maybe I just want him. So she's finally giving into her feelings for Kai. I think after all of this time, it's like, why are we even fighting? What is the point of all of this? Like, yeah. And the day is coming, you know, the day's approaching. Time is not on their side. And Kai they're having really sweet moments, laying in the grass, putting like little flowers in each other's hair. They're just being super, super cute. He's consoling her, she's crying, whatever. They fall asleep and they wake up the next day, and it's just like an unsettling feeling. But Kai has kind of had enough of all of this, and we get a really interesting confession from him, because she tells him, the only way I want you is without a mask, Kai. And he says, fine, here is me without a mask. I don't know what you want me to do. I don't have a choice. And she's like, you always have a choice. Not in the life I was born into, the missions I'm sent on, you. And she's like, me? It's like, I had no choice in the matter. Do you think I could have stopped if I tried? And she's like, what the heck are you talking about? And he drops this bomb. He says, stop myself from falling in love with you. But he's not done with his confession. He says, out here I am Kai and nothing more. Out here I am powerless, a monster without an ability to hide behind, an enforcer free from his mask, a man shouting his love for a woman. I'm so sorry. Oh. But finally we get like the big I love you from him, and it was exactly how I wanted it to go. He is so perfect. Lauren did a really good job with his dialogue. Delicious. And I'm telling you, Lauren Roberts saved the best quotes for last, okay? Are you kidding me with these? Because Kai's not done here. He says, tell me you hate me and I'll still count every heartbeat, every freckle, every shiver of your body, if only you say it with a smile. I may be a monster, but if you cut me, I'll bleed. And if you break my heart pay, you'll break me. So even if a sliver of your soul longs for mine, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. Boys need to be taking notes. They should read these books and just take notes on how to confess their love for women. I said it and I mean it. And one more for good measure, okay? Because she's like, you're being crazy. You're like, you know, she's not really responding much, even though she's probably getting really emotional and trying not to say the same thing. But also, she's very practical. She's very rational, okay? She's level-headed. She knows this is not going to end well. They're not going to end well. He's being mushy-gushy, but it's just not realistic to declare love for each other. That's just not happening. He tells her that none of this was ever pretend. I've never tried to pretend to want you. And they're like, what about our dads and us killing each other? And they both decide we're just gonna forgive each other and move on, because at the end of the day, none of this was really our fault. Things were beyond our control, and what happened. And she's like, he tells her, call us even, call me crazy, I don't care, just call me yours. But unfortunately, when it comes to this book, all good things must come to an end. And I feel like this happiness really is just to distract us from the terror that's about to go down between these three individuals. Next day, Imperial guards spot them and they make their way over to the poppy field. Their time in the sun is over. So Kai is like, all right, just pretend with me one more time and trust me. I love you, and even though you won't run away like I'm telling you to run away, I will get us through this. I promise. So she just has to trust him. The guards are not nice to her. One of them like slaps her across the face and like blood comes out of her mouth. And this may be my favorite quote in the book, and I don't know what that says about me. Kai tells the Imperial guard, touch her again and I'll slit your throat. She's mine. I can just see it. I can just see it. And the word mine is italicized, okay? So it's like, there's umph there. But anyway, they make their way to the palace. They're walking through the streets of Ilia, and this scene really reminds me of that scene in Game of Thrones with like the shame with Cersei Lannister. Like people are yelling at her in the streets, calling her a killer and blah blah blah, traitor, whatever. It's not a good look, but again, she just has to roll with it, and Kai is feeling super terrible about this whole situation, but he has no choice now. Duty is officially kicked in and he just has to do what he's got to do. So at last, everyone is reunited. Paden, Kai, and the King of Ilia, Kit, are all in the throne room, and it is quite the scene. We've got people that are just shouting, they're yelling things, and Kit is talking to Kai, but it's like really cold, kind of weird vibes going between them, and he's like, was there any unforeseen circumstances between you two? But we all know what that means. Like, he wants to know, what were you guys really up to? Why did it take so long to come back here? Like, I know you're really good at your job. It shouldn't have taken you this long. Yeah. So anyway, that goes down, and then Kitty Cat is just being a douche canoe, okay? He's giving daddy energy, but not the good kind. You know what I mean? So Kai's like, I brought her back, did I not? And Kit is like, that is not what I asked, brother. And we get a close-up look at Kit's face. It says, dark circles smudge beneath his eyes, aging him with nothing more than lack of sleep. His hair is ruffled, sticking up between the strands of his crown, as though he's been running his hands through it. Wrinkled clothes, labbed low, an unshaven jaw, while slightly mismatched socks tell me that servants haven't been tending to the king. The faint outline of a box draws my attention to his right pocket, though I can't make out what lies inside. And this is Paden's inner monologue. She doesn't know what's about to happen, but things aren't looking good. She's seeing Kit and he's not looking great at all, but she didn't really know what to expect. Also, he's being super fidgety. He's twitching, he's shaking his leg. He's got ink all over his hands. He just does not look good at all. And then Kit makes an announcement. He's asking Paden to confess pretty much all of her sins and admit to killing the king and all of these crimes and working with the resistance, blah blah blah. And this whole time he's like not really looking at her, but then when Kit looks at Paden, it says, when the king looks up, I see Kit shining through his expression. The sudden shift has me blinking in surprise, blinking at the familiarity of that face. And when I see Kai straighten slightly beside me, I know he sees it too. And this part is so unsettling to me because this whole entire book, he gave the impression that he's not well. Like he's going crazy. He's the Mad King. So why does he now look like his old self? Why is there light in his eyes? Like, did he have a revelation? Is this a facade? Is he just playing a really good role right now? Or was everything up until this point a facade? Like, what is happening? Then Kit tells Paden to stand after she admits to all of the crimes. She's like accepting her fate. If she dies, whatever. And the king's eyes travel up the length of me before landing on my gaze. He pulls that box from his pocket, small and velvet between his fingers. The lid lifts, snapping open to reveal. And then it's like an ellipsis, and then it says, nothing could have prepared me for the words that fall from his lips, not even a real dang psychic. The ring sparkles against the black velvet it sits within. You are to be my bride. And that is the end of Reckless. My flowers were thoroughly gasted at the end of this book. Thankfully, Lauren has not made us wait a very, very long time for the release of Fearless, but I hope you guys enjoyed this plot summary. I want to know, what is your favorite scene in the book? What is your favorite quote? Let me know your thoughts on Kit and his mind, his mental state. I want to know about Callum. We have so many questions, and I'm so excited to see what Lauren comes up with for the final book in this trilogy. I'm so sad it's gonna be over, but it's gonna be a doozy. It's gonna be a good one. I already know this book is one of my favorite series ever, 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 ever. And if you're looking for merch for Powerless, you can go on my Etsy shop. I do have custom book quote sweaters. You can get your favorite quote from the book on them. So just go ahead and check that out. I will also leave it in the description box below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Me and my little mini spatula thoroughly appreciate your time. And until next time, I will catch you in my next video. Mwah. Bye!